Hi, I'm David Harry, and in this video I'm going to be testing one of these against one of these. Okay, so the simple point of this test then is to test a Road VideoMicro against a Sennheiser ME64. Both of these microphones are cardioid condenser type microphones, so we're going to be comparing like for like in this test. Now, the Road costs around £40 to £50 and the Sennheiser costs between £300 to £350. Now, the Sennheiser comprises of a K6 power module, which is this part at the bottom, which supplies the power if you're not supplying phantom to the microphone, and this is the actual capsule itself is in here, whereas with the Road it's tiny like that. So in this test then, the Road is going to be powered by the microphone socket of the camcorder, or more specifically the plug-in power or the electret power which that socket supplies, and the Sennheiser ME64 is going to be self-powered with its K6 powering module. Also, when I do the outdoor portions of the test, I'm actually going to be using the wind muff or the deadcat or whatever you want to call it that comes with the Road. So I'm going to use that on both of the microphones. And just to keep things even, I'm going to use the same shock mount on both of the microphones during all the tests. Now, unfortunately, I can't use the Lyra shock mount that comes with the Road because unfortunately it's too small and weak to support the ME64. So what I'll do, I'll use one of these, which is just another Rycote Lyra shock mount. And while you might think it's a bit overkill for a tiny Road microphone, which it probably is, it'll just keep the level playing field for us all the way through. So all the bits that go on the cameras and all the bits that touch the cameras and all that stuff is as equal as possible. And the last thing to note about the test conditions is when the microphones are being recorded, I simply get the best optimum input level at the time of recording. I don't use a compressor or a limiter or anything going in. They're not being preamped externally, so this is going to be like for like. Also, once I get into the edit scenario, when I get there, all I'm going to do is just re-level the microphones ever so slightly, and that's just so that we have a relative even volume running through the test as we listen back. And I'm also not going to be applying any EQ, any limiting, any compression, nothing. So what it is, this is going to be kind of like straight in and straight out as far as the audio recording and the monitoring and listening is concerned. Okay, so I'll get straight on now with the tests. So for the first part of the indoor testing, it's the Road in this kind of like mid-close position in front of me. Now I'm also going to be using the 30 deadcat thing here as well, and that's only because I'm not entirely sure whether I'm going to be too close to it to like introduce plosives. So rather than like, you know, test the theory of whether this is close enough for plosives or not, I'm just going to put the deadcat on anyway. Okay, so this should give us a really good example of the Road being put into this kind of mid-close position, and this will be good for people who are doing vlogging, pieces to camera or anything like that where they don't mind the microphone being in shot like this. So this is now the Sennheiser ME64 in this same mid-close position, and as with the previous take with the Road, this would be useful for all the same things as well that I mentioned before. Now the other thing again worth mentioning here, just to, you know, as part of the dialogue testing, I might as well give some little specs on these as well. As mentioned in the introduction, both of these microphones are cardioid types. So basically what it means is that they're really good at picking up in front of them. They reject quite well at the side and they reject mostly from behind. Now in this particular instance being indoors, and I'm in a living room here as well, so this is a typical home environment which isn't best for acoustics and whatnot. It's really good to use a cardioid type microphone or a more focused pattern microphone if you can get away with it for doing indoor stuff like this. Okay, so once again, this was the ME64 in the kind of mid-close position. So the next configuration for the indoor part of the testing is the Road being used as a boom mic. So right now it's just being boomed there, slightly out of frame. And, you know, I don't have another person off camera, you know, with a pole with the mic on the end. This is literally just being used on the same scissor stand to bring it over the top. And another thing while I'm at that as well, them scissor stands, you can pick them up for less than £10 on Amazon as well. In fact, I'll have some links in the descriptions for the stand and the mic and whatnot. But the thing with this, what I'm kind of trying to prove as well, is that if you haven't got a lot of money and you simply cannot be affording to like buy either a second mic specifically for booming, or you just can't afford to buy a more expensive microphone. This should give you a really good idea as to the versatility of the Road Micro. And like I say, this may not be like its traditional use, but you know what? If you like this, or if you like any microphone in any position, just use it. Yeah, so once again, this is the Road VideoMicro being used as a boom mic. And to conclude all the indoor testing, I am now on the ME64. Just out of shot there, same boom position that I just had the Road in. Now, the thing with the 64, it's probably fair to say that traditionally this would be like a good position for this microphone. Although, saying that, and like I just said earlier with the Road, any microphone that you have, if you test it in a position or a scenario or an environment and you like the sound of it and it's doing its job, don't worry about it. You know, sometimes it's, you know, don't listen to convention sometimes, basically. Just do your own thing, and if it suits you and suits your purposes and you like it, just go for it. Okay, so once again, this is the ME64 coming over the top in a boom position. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Bingo! Bleh. Alright, so as we can see, I am now outdoors for the outdoor part of this test. And the first thing that I'm going to be testing right now is the Road top mounted to the Sony AX100. Also, what I'm going to be doing is filming just to the left of me here with a Yi 4K Plus action camera, and that's just to give us a bit of perspective here so we can see the setup and how I'm going about doing it. Now, there's going to be a bit of a discrepancy here between the pictures between the two cameras. And when I say a bit of a discrepancy, I'm probably understating that fact. They probably look miles apart from one another as far as picture is concerned. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. The main reason is, you know, it's the two different cameras by two different manufacturers. So, you know, off bat, they're never going to look close to one another anyway. And also on top of that, where I am right now, it's quite sunny. And what it is, I can't see either of the screens on these too well because of the amount of, like, you know, ambient light I've got going on around me. And I don't use an external monitor with a HUD or anything. So I've effectively kind of got these set up. Well, the Yi's basically all fully auto. The Sony, I've locked its shutter to 50, so I've got 180 degrees for PAL 25. The rest of the settings on the Sony are effectively auto, so it's kind of like gauging as best as it can what to do in this scenario. The Yi, on the other hand, that's basically all fully automatic. I mean, both of them as well. I've dropped them down on the EVs as well because both of them kind of shoot over with exposure anyway. But with the Yi, that suffers the same problem as, say, you know, all action cameras that I've ever used, and this includes the GoPros. What it is, because they don't have a neutral density filter built in, what they do, they have to use a combination of like dropping its sensitivity as low as possible and ramping up its shutter as high as possible for instances like this where there's a ton of light going on. So basically that is set up, you know, in the most optimal way I can actually get it right now. Hence why both of the cameras are going to look a little bit different. Anyway, I've just rambled on about camera stuff when I'm doing an audio test. So what I'm doing right now is I've got the Sony. Oh yeah, sorry. And just to round that bit off as well, by the way, yeah, they're going to look totally different. And when I get back into post, I'm not going to go touching them either. I'm not going to bother trying to colour match them or anything. The Yi's only there, just a little cutaway to give us perspective. The main thing here is audio. So right now, like I say, I have got the Road top mounted onto the Sony. it's like a full arm's length away. Now this would be very typical for somebody doing selfie stuff where they've got like a camera, you know, like either on a stick full arm's length away or mounted exactly as I've got it right now on a tripod, just doing like real like cool vloggy stuff to camera. Not saying that I'm doing cool vloggy stuff, I'm just doing a mic test, but if this is what you do as a vlogger, you could do cool vloggy stuff like this. Also, this is a great setup for doing, say, dialogue stuff, say, interview, like close-framed interview stuff. So what you're hearing right now is very representative of both those two scenarios. Now, the other thing also to bear in mind here is this camera records uncompressed audio, and also it's got really good converters, or really good analog to digital converters for when the microphone goes in. So right now this camera is effectively recording exactly the same as what something like, say, a Zoom or a Tascam external audio recorder would record like. So whatever you're hearing right now is probably going to be exactly the same as using an external audio recorder that's recording in WAV mode. Now, I'm not entirely sure whether I'm recording 16-bit or 24 here. I'm definitely recording 48 kilohertz, but regardless of whether it's 24-bit or 16-bit, this is dialogue we're recording here. We're not recording like, you know, the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra or anything like that. So that difference in bit depth, we're not going to hear anything remotely different between recording 16 or 24-bit. I mean, that's another little misconception I think I'd like to clear up right now for like a lot of people. You know, people going, oh yeah, you should always record 24-bit and all the rest of it. Well, don't get hung up if you're not recording 24-bit just for dialogue. It won't matter. And to be honest, even for like anything else, you know, 16-bit is perfectly fine. And then people start going on about like, oh yeah, and you should be recording like, you know, super duper sample rates and all the rest of it. Well, the problem is with super duper sample rates, you know, at the end of the day, if most of your stuff is either going to end up on YouTube or say on DVDs and such, and you know, whatever like that, or MP4 files that you pass about to friends and family, it's all going to be 16-bit 48 anyway, and then heavily compressed as probably an AAC file. So it's really debatable as to like, you know, how far you should go worrying about the technical specifications of bit depth and also sampling frequency. In fact, as well, just while we're on that point as well, my background is audio and, well, specifically music production. And back in the day, you know, when we first went from analog tape to 16-bit 44 kilohertz digital recording, it was like oh, it'll never get better than this. So if it was good enough for all that stuff back then, it's well good enough for a camcorder for doing dialogue as well. Anyways, I've just gone on a bit of a ramble there, sorry about that. But anyway, what I'm doing here is just showing the Road on top of the Sony AX100. Now I'll get on with the rest of the test and I'll stop rambling. Okay, so I've switched over now onto the Sennheiser, and I'll try and keep this bit a lot shorter than what the previous section was, because I did go off on one. Yeah, so what I've done here, I've set up the Sennheiser as best as possible in the exact same position as what the Road was. So essentially it's coming in at the same angle. It's also, the capsule is roughly going to be in the same position, and I'm using the same deadcat as well, which is the Rode's deadcat, but this time I've put it on the Sennheiser. And I'm also still using the same Lyra shock mount system. So basically I'm giving both of these microphones the exact same setup possible. And also as well, I've left the mic gain exactly the same on the Sony. And like I said earlier on the introduction, the only thing I'm going to do here is just rebalance a bit in post as well, just so we can get kind of like relative volumes as well. Okay, so I think this is probably going to be good enough just for this, because I kind of did go on a little bit just before. I must apologize for that, and I really do need to reel myself in on these things as well. Okay, so once again, this is the Sennheiser top mounted on top of the Sony. Okay, so as we can see right now, I've got the Road handheld. There we go. And although this may seem a little unconventional for this particular microphone, I mean, I've not really seen anyone using this mic like this, but I think this is going to sound brilliant for doing like, you know, like close dialogue work. Now this could be used for, say, interview stuff, reporting, or absolutely anything where you need to put a microphone on, like, you know, a little handheld system like this. Now the other thing it's probably going to be good for as well, let me just get this cable to stop rattling, if I was sitting here, say, or standing here with another person talking, because it's a cardioid pattern on this microphone and it's not massively focused, say like a shotgun is, you could probably get away with just sitting it comfortably just between two people talking. So as I'm talking right now and pretend I'm just looking at someone talking to them, it's probably still picking me up really well. Okay, so like I say, this is just an example of using the Rode as a handheld microphone. Okay, so now on to the Sennheiser, again in a handheld position, using the exact same kind of hand grip and the Lyra suspension cradle. And you know, this is just going to be another little quick example just for us to hear the tonal differences between how this sounds and how the Rode just sounded as well. And again, for the exact same scenario, this would be used for like reporting or interview work or what have you. And again, I'll just do that little thing where I set it off just like kind of in the middle as if I were talking to someone. So I'll talk across that way as if I was talking to somebody, and you'll probably find that the cardioid pattern on this is going to be really good as well, or wide enough in the front in order to pick up a nice little bubbled area in front of it. Okay, so once again, this was the Sennheiser handheld. Oh yeah, and just one more thing as well before I go indoors and do my summary. I will now do the count test and the silence sensitivity test for these takes outdoors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So to the summary then, and for the dialogue for the summary, I'm going to be using the Rode as well. So this will give us another good example of the Rode. Now what it is right now, actually, I've got the Rode on its own Lyra shock mount. So with the exception of the long cable that I've had to use with all the testing, and I've had to do that only because the short cable that comes with the Rode wouldn't possibly have reached the camera. So aside from that cable, here is exactly what you get with the Rode. So it's on its own suspension cradle now. Now, the other thing as well, as you'll have noticed, I've got it a lot closer to myself. So hopefully, you know, we should be picking up a little bit more bass response and stuff like that due to the bass proximity effect. Now, this is also a really good, or should be a really good example to show people what they could use the Rode for. Now, in this instance, this is definitely a proper, you know, vlogging or blogging or podcasting or whatever piece to camera thing where people really just don't mind having the microphone this close. Now, obviously with the exception of this long boom coming in, and hopefully that's not triggering the autofocus on the camera as well, so hopefully I am in focus. But you know, that aside there, putting a microphone here is what a lot of people do for the likes of vlogging and like podcasting and all that type of stuff. So if that's the kind of thing that you do, this will give you a really good example of how the Rode sounds in this position. Now, usually when I get to me summary, I kind of do ramble a bit, but I'm going to keep this dead short. And the reason for that is, normally I would kind of, you know, I'd maybe try and put forward, like, say, the negative points or the downsides of things. Well, to be honest, for both of these microphones, there is no downsides whatsoever. And it more so, when I say that, I say more so that for the Rode than anything, because I think that this is a hugely impressive and maybe an underused microphone as well, because most people will use this attached to the top of a camera, say for vlogging and stuff. And don't get me wrong, it's brilliant at that, as we heard on the outdoor portion of the tests and whatnot as well. Now, that is great, but I think that this microphone is massively underused, and you know, and this position hopefully proves that to people as well. So maybe someone's going to listen to this video or listen to these audio examples and go, do you know what, I'm going to get a Rode. And well, I would say straight away, maybe you should already have one. You know, but they're a great microphone, and like I say, I'm not going to go dissecting things here. You know, the Sennheiser is obviously a better microphone. It's got more of an open top on it as well, or open top end. Say open top, it's not a bus. And, you know, it's going to have a bit more better bass frequency response as well. But that said, you know, that microphone costs £300 to £350. The Rode costs between £40 to £50. So, you know, there's a huge, massive massive price difference there. So basically, the one thing that I will say to wrap up the conclusion is, if you've got the money and and it's not going to cause you any issues spending out on one, get the Sennheiser. It's a fantastic microphone. But if you haven't got the money and you got 40 to 50 quid and that's your upper budget to get a microphone, do not bother with anything else. Get one of these, and hopefully all the different positions that I've tried it in and all the different examples will give people a really good idea of what this microphone is capable of. Okay, so I'm almost going into my usual rambling right now, so I'm gonna have to be careful to stop doing that. Yeah, so basically I'll end the whole video here, and you've heard exactly what I've had to say, but more importantly, use your own ears and you gauge exactly what you think. And I'd really like it if people want to leave, comments, in the descriptions below, and maybe start a little bit of a discussion on what their views are of this microphone and the other one. So basically, the last thing that remains for me to say now is thank you very much for watching this video. Take care and goodbye now.